What we have here is a co-tidal chart. We have a co-tidal chart of the British Isles and adjacent waters, and this covers parts of the Irish Sea, the English Channel and the North Sea in its entirety. So I'm going to introduce the co-tidal chart in the context of hydrography. Now, if you consider in hydrography our fundamental aim is to measure the water depth, we do this with an echo sounder. And the echo sounder measures what we call the raw depth. We need to reduce this down to a common depth datum, so depth below chart datum. And to do this, we need to be able to measure the height of the tide. So we would install perhaps a shore-based tide gauge. Now, if we're working offshore, we need to be able to determine the height of the tide at an offshore location, which may be fundamentally different to the height of the tide at our shore-based tide gauge. So to overcome this, we do a tide extrapolation, and this is essentially what the co-tidal chart is used for. The co-tidal chart represents this lattice of two sets of lines, those of amplitude, denoted by the green, and those of phase, denoted by the red. So by using the co-tidal lines, which are drawn through points of equal mean high water interval, or the phase, which is the red lines, and the co-range lines, which represent points of equal spring range, which are the green lines, we can make an estimate of the tidal height for our offshore location. So if we consider this region on the chart here in the southern North Sea, just as we exit the English Channel to the east, we can see here we've got quite a lot of activity. So if we know our tidal height at our tide gauge location in Lowestoft, we can essentially use this chart to extrapolate that data to our offshore vessel location, which may be, for example, located here. Now, we know in the context of hydrography why we need to understand the tide perhaps here, but perhaps as a navigator you would want to know the depth of water that you have at any instantaneous point below chart datum. So this is the main purpose of the co-tidal chart, to present the necessary information from which a tidal prediction for this offshore location can be made. Now, if we're thinking about chart reliability, it's interesting to note here we've got a dashed line enclosing this area, because it's known within this area that the tidal curve is known to be distorted. So it warns against us using the co-tidal chart for making any predictions in this region.